Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Tonight is the July 26th Town Board meeting. Would everybody please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. I'll try to be brief.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Next.
a couple announcements. Summer's going quick, and I'm sure everybody's enjoying it. Been very busy. I started the month with a department head meeting. I discussed with the department heads the upcoming budget. The comptroller handed everyone a copy of their budget for review, and I'll be meeting with each department head separately for the budgeting process to go over their needs and concerns. We also discussed a few other concerns. We ironed a few problems out with safety, and it was very productive. So thank you to the department heads. Van Wyck Junior High, they received an award. They were designated as one of the New York State and national school to watch. Every 3 years, they go through a rigorous evaluation process to be sure they meet without exception the set criteria by the National Forum for Acceleration of Middle Grades Reform. This designation is a credit to all the staff there, the students, the district, the community. So congratulations to all of them and Principal Steve Shukat. And also more awards, our own assessor, Kathy Martin. She's also the president of the board of the Hudson Valley House of Hope. It's a shelter for victims of domestic violence. She was honored by our state senator, Sue Serino, for being one of 15 local women who make an impact here in our community. They work to empower other women also along the way. So a big congratulations to Kathy. It's a huge honor. Monday the 16th, we had another Veterans Council meeting. I'm sure Councilman Franco will give you some details on that later. Tuesday the 17th, I met with one of the owners of the West Campus behind the Sports Dome. The rest of the property has been sold. A consortium of owners have purchased it. They came in to discuss some water, what our water and sewer capacities are, to see what they can start trying to lease some of the buildings. They have plans to lease some of the buildings and build new buildings there. So it's going to be very exciting, and they are serious developers. They have several projects that they have done already, so we're excited to see what's going to happen there. On Wednesday the 18th, I was invited to the Chamber of Commerce breakfast along with our state assemblyman, Kieran Lawler. We sat with John Morgan of Morgan Strategic Wealth. He's also an East Fishkill resident. So thank you, John, for inviting us. The keynote speaker was Steve Couture. He's the COO of iPark in East Fishkill. He gave a detailed explanation of how the whole process went for iPark to get there, how the property went from IBM to Global Foundries, and now a portion of it to National Resources. He also gave us an idea of what they're planning to do there. They're looking for large box stores, warehouse, retail, hotels possibly, and even possibly some housing. There are many different owners of different businesses at the Contact Breakfast, and Mr. Couture, I saw he was networking with a lot of them, so I think that things are going to start happening on the East and West Campus, so it's going to be very exciting. Next month, we have a combined workshop and voting meeting. I want to start early at 6 o'clock so I could discuss a couple things going on at Hillside Lake. We're planning to start draining a part of Hillside Lake maybe in a few weeks. We'll try and get some personnel out there soon to check the mechanicals to make sure everything's in working order so we can start lowering the lake. We'd like to remove some sediment that's there. We already have a permit in hand from the DEC to do that, so we'd like to start that. Also, while the lake is lowered, we can do some other testing there. We could do some topography, pictures, and other tests that we've been discussing with Stephen Gruber and David Whitney. We've been in contact with the Army Corps of Engineers, the DEC. We're trying to get a handle of what we could do there. So next month, we can present, what we have done so far as part of our planning and thinking to try to get the permitting in place to start the work there. I've also been speaking with the mayor of the Village of Wappingers, Matt Alexander. They are going to be purchasing this machine where they harvest the lily pads from their lake. So I discussed with him the possibility of us contracting or leasing it from him, and he said that's a good possibility, so we could save some money there also. I met with Keith Walker. He's with Conti Federal Construction. They are doing the Hopewell North Water District up by Ryan Drive, the Superfund site. They have been coordinating with us a lot of the road closures and delays, and they've been very good. They've been trying to get us as much information as possible, and thank you to our police department for aiding them with road closures and whatnot. But they try to get us the information as soon as possible, and we pass it on to Channel 22 or Facebook sites, or the website, Gov Delivery, whatever we could do. I'm going to try and have him come next month to give us a little update on how the project is going. Also, the EPA will be inspecting the Shenandoah Road groundwater contamination Superfund site. They do this every 5 years. It's required by federal law. Then they determine if any new regulatory requirements have been established since the EPA's original cleanup decision. So I'll keep an eye out for that. I'll post whatever information we get from that on our town website. Yesterday, Deputy Supervisor Cassidy and I stopped down at the community center. They were having Christmas in July. They had a nice hot lunch, and they were having a bunch of other games they were doing, like a snowball fight with a bunch of big marshmallows. The seniors were having a really good time. And hats off to all the personnel down there: Sue Gardner, the director, the assistant director, Mary Calabrese, rec assistant, Mary Collier, another rec assistant, Rosalina Reynolds, and Rosemary from the Dutchess County Office of the Aging. She's the Senior Nutrition Service Program director, so thank you to all of them. They do a great job. Our seniors love them. So also, I noticed that, our community, we're blessed. We have a lot of great different facets. We have industrial, farming, small businesses, schools, different sporting organizations. And saying that, there is a clinic that moved to, they renovated a building down Route 376, the old Chadwick building. If people remember that, it was called Chadwick's Restaurant. I think I'm aging myself a little. It was about 25 or 30 years ago. But it's called, right, that long ago? Hudson Valley Behavioral Solutions, that's the name of it. It's a clinic for children on the autism spectrum. They've done a phenomenal job restoring the building. It's located almost at the end of 376 where it meets Route 52 before the police station on the right-hand side. It's an older building, and they did a really phenomenal job. So hats off to the owners, Chris and Sheila Jablowski. And if you're around that area, please take a look at it. They really did a beautiful job. I'd also like to thank 13-year-old Ryan Lugo from the Boy Scouts. He came in yesterday to give me an interview. I think he's here tonight. Hi, Ryan. He's a really great kid. He came in to the interview with me for the Boy Scouts, and it's nice to see young men who want to help our community. So thank you to Ryan. We've been working hard on the well rehabilitation in Fishkill Plains Water District. The engineer will give us a little review on it. But first, if you remember, we had some issues down there at the Fishkill Plains Water District. We had to do an emergency connection because we had to rehab our wells, and we had to do a test that the Board of Health requires, and it came back with some bacteria in the water. So we had to issue a boil water notice, and we had to do multiple 24-hour water tests, which all came back negative. It was a very stressful situation, but everything worked out really well. So thank you to our water and engineering department for helping, and our operators. And it turned out to be a false, a negative, a false reading. So I guess sometimes it happens. But Scott, at the end of my announcements, you could give a little on the memo, please?
Sure.
Also, I'd like to announce tonight on our agenda, I had to do a few additions to the agenda. One of them is changing the August 23rd Town Board meeting to August 30th, a week later. Councilman Beepan and I were chosen by Dutchess County to be representatives from Dutchess County to attend a conference at the White House in Washington. The White House is hosting this to develop a working relationship between the White House and New York State leaders. So it's a big honor, and we're happy to represent everybody, and we'll let you know how that goes. Next month, we'll be having another economic development meeting. We have guest speakers from the state and from the county coming down to discuss with our committee about the different things that those agencies handle. It's very important for our business community to know this because we're looking to do an expansion of our businesses. As everybody knows, this is a high priority for this town board. We have to expand our tax base as much as we can to have, economic sustainability. Today, also, I met with Corey Earhart. He's a fire commissioner. He's also the liaison to the town board for the fire district. We usually meet monthly to discuss several issues that the town and the fire district has. In September, we're going to have our workshop meeting. Possibly, he's going to get it approved by the commissioners, but we're going to have our workshop meeting at the fire district headquarters. And the discussion will be with the fire commissioners about how the fire department relates in our town and how we work together. That's about it. Scott, would you give us a quick review of your memo to the board on the well rehab, please?
Sure. So about 2 weeks ago, we started the rehab on the 2 wells at Fishkill Plains. We completed well 2 just Friday of last week. Initially, the hydrogeologist LBG had projected anywhere from a 30 to 50% increase in well yield capacity because these wells haven't been rehabbed since they were put into service. And there's iron and manganese in the ground, which clogs up the well screens. But as it turns out, we spent a few more days, actually about an extra week and a half on it, and we've restored well 2 to the original yield, which is terrific news. Nobody had anticipated that we would be able to get that much water again from well 2. So now we're on well 1. It's a little different type of screen. We're not quite sure if we'll get the same results, but today, after a couple of days of flushing, the numbers did appear to jump up a little bit. We'll know more by the beginning of next week. So far, so good. We're spending a little extra money on it, but we're doing a better flushing job because we are seeing, positive results, and we're hopeful that this may remain as a viable source for the town, for years to come as a major water supply. So as we do our permanent, our final testing, which we're going to present to the board some cost estimates for that for a new 72-hour pump test, we may be able to amend our permit with the DEC to increase the yield, which is all good news. And then we'll see from there how Fishkill Plains may interact with other water systems, Worley Homes and Revere Park, and maybe, an alternate source for them. So it's all good news so far.
That's very good. We needed some good news in the water area, that's for sure. So if anybody has any questions about that, please contact the engineer. Okay, that's it for the announcements. Anything for receipt and file?
No,
No?
but I need to call the roll.
Oh, and then call the roll. Call the roll.
Okay. Councilperson Cassidy?
Present.
Councilperson Marinaro?
Present.
Councilperson Franco?
Present.
Councilperson Beepan?
Present.
Supervisor Delisandro?
Present. Okay, everybody received the June 28, 2018 minutes? And were there any additions, subtractions, clerk?
No, there was none.
No, nothing? So do I have a motion to approve the June 28, 2018 minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. We have 3 additions to the agenda tonight. One is hiring for the Highway Department. Number 2 is authorize a change of the August Town Board meeting and public hearing schedule from August 23rd to August 30th. And number 3 is authorize a grant application for the Route 82 improvements. So with saying that, there was nothing for receipt and file. We'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing that we adjourned last month for the Hopewell West Water District. Do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So move.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing now is reopened. We received the final map plan and report from the engineer, and we have added in the concerns and comments from the last meeting, correct, engineer?
Yes, that is correct.
And was there any other concerns? Did everybody review it? Any other questions? No, the bond term is the same, the cost is the same, we're under the threshold from New York State, right?
Correct.
And anybody from the public wish to speak on the formation of the Hopewell West Water District?
Yeah, hi. I'm not sure if you got, or Scott, you got something from Raul Verma regards the comments to the NPR. Can I give you, he was trying to get something to you, but I guess he couldn't be here tonight, so I'm not sure what happened there. So can I give you this, and
Sure.
Anybody else want another copy, or?
Well, you could give it to the clerk, she'll give it to all of
Okay.
us.
Okay.
And I guess my first question is I'm looking at a multi-year list, New York State Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And for the Revere Park Worley Homes, the project cost is $2,270,300. Is that correct?
That's the estimate, yes.
I'm sorry?
That's the estimate, yes.
That's the estimate, okay.
Yes.
And then I'm looking at Fishkill Plains. Can I assume that they're no longer part of this big project cost? Or are they still included in this $2,270,000?
They are not currently included in that 2 million and change.
Okay, but Revere Park is.
Yes, not in this map plan report, but it is associated with, they are sharing in cost, but it's not part of this map plan report.
Okay, so I'm trying to reconcile the Worley share, and it looks like it's at 94% of this $2,270,000.
Now, the 2 million that's reflected in the map plan report is borne solely by Worley Homes. That's what this map plan report is for.
Right.
In
I
addition,
mean,
that Revere Park has costs that they will incur above and beyond the 2 million. They're not part of this 2 million.
well, the Worley share is $2,137,000, right? But the project cost is estimated at $2,270,000, which is what I assume the bond is going to be.
100,000 is the pilot system.
100,000 by the system? That could be where that 100,000 is, yeah.
I'm sorry?
No, the map plan report is solely for Worley Homes.
Right, no, I understand
Revere
that part.
Park is not in here.
I understand that, but
So if there's you're talking about is $100,000,
there's like 135,000 difference there?
Well, 100,000 is the purchase price to purchase the system
Right, but that's in the Worley
in
numbers.
World.
and Worley, yeah.
Okay, my point is, the bond is going to be for $2,270,000.
No, the bond is for $2,137,553.
Okay, I'm looking at this now, multi-year, the project cost
Well, if it's
for
from
Worley
the,
Homes and Revere Park, it says.
The rest, the difference there will be borne
What
by
document, though, are you looking at?
Revere
looking at
Park.
the-
Where
the
are you
drinking
looking at?
water
What page is
website
that?
for the bond.
Right, New York State Drinking Water
That was
State.
an estimate at the time in order to attempt to qualify for the subsidized
Right, that's
financing.
about 4
Okay.
years old, that
Right.
document.
But it mentions Revere Park is included in that cost estimate.
Yes, but that's from about 4 years ago, and a lot has changed, but that number has not been updated. And that won't
Okay,
be
but
updated until we finalize the project and get through design, and then we'll update that number.
The solid
Not to
numbers,
say that Revere's share is just the difference. That's not correct.
the solid number for you to worry about Worley Homes is in the map plan and report, page 11, for project costs and user
Right,
costs.
right.
And that is what we are bonding for, the $2,137,553. That's only for Worley Homes.
And this is a current figure, that's an old figure you're looking at.
Okay,
That'll
so
be
then-
updated.
So then the Revere portion will be another bond of some sort, I assume?
Correct.
Or born somewhere in their district,
Okay,
right?
okay,
Previously, Revere Park was part of a townwide water improvement that we had done a couple years ago, so there's money set aside for Revere Park there. That's going to be amended, but we haven't amended it yet because we're still designing projects, and we know the numbers are coming up on those projects, so we're waiting until we finalize the filtration project, and then we'll, tidy things up and get an updated figure on what the total cost is going to be.
okay.
And then I'll also add that with that revolving fund, they will only participate in certain items. They don't necessarily participate in the entire project cost. There's certain limitations in what they will and will not participate in.
Okay, okay. And I guess the last point is this something you're going to be voting on tonight, this Hopewell West Water District? I mean, is there a chance we can keep the public hearing open for another month till the next meeting? Because there's a lot of questions in that letter there, and I probably still have some after hearing what we have tonight. So if we could put that off the public for another month, I think it'd be good.
If you think it's a benefit to hold off, I guess we could hold off.
Yeah, I mean, the only one, we've been trying to move it forward because obviously we have to have a district in order to apply for grants.
We,
And it's
Everything's
been
time
the
sensitive.
urging of the community to move forward, but I mean, I don't think we have a
There
problem
seems to
if
be
you
a
wanna
lot of
wait.
questions on the parts
Well,
of
but
Worley
most of the
Homes.
questions are, there are no existing water meters, that's true. So flow estimates are made by
From the master
standards-
meter, from the master
From the
meter.
master meter and by flow standards that Department of Health and DEC regularly accept. I think we discussed at the last public hearing, the connections to the homes are part of the district cost, correct?
Right, but
Yeah,
the,
we're gonna replace the services wherever the service connect to a new main, not the existing main that remains, but any new main will have a new service.
I'm sorry, say that again now?
Any new main, wherever we run a new main in front of a house, that'll get a new service from the main to the house. Those sections of the pipe that don't get replaced will not have a new service line. Okay, we'll blow them out if we can, we'll replace the curb valve if we have to, but they will not get a new service line. But any new main will get a new service line to the house.
Okay, and do we know where the current mains are? In there, so we know,
We know approximately where the current mains are. We know
Okay.
approximately. We've been out for the last week or so trying to locate curb valves to help
Yeah,
identify
okay.
certain things, yeah.
okay. All right, if we could, I'd still,
Then the other issue is what kind of water meter. It's the same standard water meter that we use in our other water districts. The specifications are available with the town. They're the standard ones that are accepted.
Census.
It says, please provide the calculation of the O and M. I believe that's in the map plan and report. So I think the questions in the letter have been addressed in the map plan report in various spots.
well, that's, Raul had, these are being generated from, I guess, the NPR.
Well, again, I mean, it's their water
yeah,
system. They want to
it's
wait.
your district. We're doing this because the people wanted the town to
Yeah,
take
no,
over the district.
I understand, I understand that.
Yeah.
But the big concern is, it's a $500+ a year increase. And,
Right.
that's tough, and I think people want to make sure, okay, that their water pressure is going to increase. I know the minimum is 30 PSI, I think it was?
Yes.
Right.
Now, is that 30 PSI coming into the house, I assume? Or is that out at the main?
Those be measured at the house.
It's measured at the house.
At the house, okay. And, there's some other issues that people want to
And
talk
again,
about
the
as
health
far
department
as...
won't sign off on these plans unless we meet all these standards, or the health department won't
Yeah,
sign off,
okay.
so.
And then there's a concern of what happens inside the house, which I know is not covered in this. That's going to be strictly the homeowner's responsibility.
Right.
But I think we're trying to make sure that people might be, they are aware that they might have problems along those lines.
And we could also, the map plan and report is the best guesstimation, what we hope to happen. So,
Right,
this is
okay.
what we want to happen exactly like this, because this is the cost that we are estimating. We
Right.
don't want to have more cost, because then that's more cost for you. So if we could be under, of course, that's what we would like
Right.
to be, but
Okay.
yes, we are taking a risk. It is a very old water
Right,
district, yes.
Right. No, that's a concern of
Yeah,
inside the
I
house more than
understand.
anything, so, okay.
If the
thank you.
board wishes, we can adjourn. and-
Yeah, the other thing, sir, these meetings are held for the community to come up and address the issues. I know the last meeting, probably there were 3 or 4 of yous, they came up and addressed certain concerns. This is the reason why we have these meetings. We could hold off indefinitely as long as you want, but I know that in the past couple of years, there's been concern from the community to speed up the process, and that's what we're doing. I mean, we are doing this for you. There is no benefit to the town board or to the town of East Fishkill, but rather to take care of the problems that you've been having for the last 40 years in your community. So, the gentleman that gave the letter, he could have been here tonight.
He couldn't be, he had a prior commitment with the military, so he just couldn't
This
make it.
this meeting is to be posted and advertised. Again, yeah, if you wish, but I know there is a young lady in the corner that wants to see this water 2 years ago rather than the next 10 years, so,
Right, I mean, as far as the
Take all
people
your
not being
concerns
here,
into
I
consideration.
have a group of 20, 25 names that I'm keeping posted on what's going on.
Right.
And
Thank you.
we don't really want to get, 40, 50 people in here, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's.
It's right, but
It's,
they,
if
they
they
have
want
a
to
right to
come,
come in.
it's their right, and,
Sometimes they get a little off track. is
right, if,
basically what
and, if you think that it's, too much to bear, then that's why the community should come forward and say that, tell the town board. But what the town board has done is move forward based upon
Right.
the concerns and questions that you've had about this water system, so.
Right. Okay.
We have responded quite in a speedy manner to your desires. I know that some people have come forward a couple of years ago, and that's when this town board, and especially in the last few months, we have really done the work that needs to be
Yes,
done.
but we've waited
Again,
this long, and I figure another month is not going to,
That's,
Well, I have a
That's not
concern about the time sensitivity, as Scott was talking about with the grant, because the sooner that we pass this, that's when we can apply for the grants, correct?
Right.
Are there any restrictions on the application for the grant or a timeline?
Most of the grants says, one of the criteria is that you've established a district. So if you vote tonight, what you're voting on is to authorize the establishment of it, but it's subject to a 30-day permissive referendum period.
Right.
So between now and the next 30 days, has to be published in the paper, posted, and if a certain number of residents of the area to be included in the district file a petition, then it causes a vote of all the residents in that district. So we have to publish it, post it, wait the 30 days, then it comes back to the town board to formalize the order establishing the district. And then there are other processes. I mean, the grants can be applied for. We have to make application to the health department. It has to go to the Public Service Commission for approval of the transfer of it. So you're looking at another 6 to 9 to 12 months of approvals that have to take place before the town actually could become the owner of the system, so.
yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm just thinking another month. If the board passes and I assume they will pass it, if we don't postpone the public meeting, it kind of leaves the feeling that the board's going to do whatever they want anyway, and we're going to pay the $500 a year extra and then we have to go explain this permissive referendum to them. Okay, that can happen, but it leaves like kind of a negative feeling against the board. I'd rather avoid that if we can.
However, this board's had it on their agenda 3 consecutive meetings. One time to set the public hearing, which started last month.
Right.
Last month, it was adjourned publicly to tonight. So for anyone in the community to feel that they're trying to rush to do something, I think is a little misguided, because I think, and then before that, we held 1 or 2 community information meetings, at least one I remember, if not 2. We've met with representatives of the community, so I mean, there's been an extensive dialogue.
Yeah,
Initially, we're
I
at
don't
900.
disagree with you, but I'm just thinking one more month is, I don't see that it's gonna hurt that much. So
I don't see
I'll leave it
either,
up to you.
but the 1 month is not 1 month, it's 60 days, right? Because
Right, it'll be
30 days for
September,
the
maybe, yeah.
permissive, in case there would be a permissive referendum.
Okay, I'll,
So it don't matter, I mean, if the board wishes, it doesn't matter for me.
okay, I'll leave it up to the board then, you know.
Let's hear from more residents.
You know, sir, the other little comment that I want to address, that you said, this board will do whatever we wish, we as a board. I don't think that's the case. I just want to be clear that we are here to serve you and your community. You have asked us to address certain issues, and we're here responding to that. So I just want to clarify, we are not just, if you want us to hold off on a vote, by all means. I think right now you're one person asking for that. I don't know if you have a list of names, but this board tonight, whether or not we vote tonight or not, we have really no self-interest. I just want you to understand that, in whether we vote tonight or 6 months or a year from now. We're doing this for the community of Worley Homes.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but, you know, I'm just trying to point out the perception that might happen, whether it's right or wrong, you know, it's a perception, and sometimes perceptions are not good, okay? That's all I'm trying to say, okay, okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Ms. Walker, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you? I'm
Good.
the young lady in the corner. This is interesting, because one of the things, and it started, this particular initiative started back in, I believe, in December of 2016. And to the board's credit, it has moved as quickly as it can, given the complexities of the problems, and we do appreciate that. What Jack was really, speaking to is the borrowers, which is the district that's going to be formed, or the Worley homeowners. When you take on a 7-figure debt, there's a sense of having to understand as fully and completely as you can the ramifications of taking that on, and that you are comfortable with the end product. And I think that's what we're looking at. In fact, I'm sure. It's a big chunk of money to borrow, and it is the district's responsibility, not the town's. And as, anyone is taking on a massive debt like that, if we don't do our own due diligence and feel comfortable with that, then, it does leave kind of a bitter taste, even though it may not be deserved. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid, because there is no one sitting up there that says, you know what, I don't think we want Worley Homes to have a good water system. You haven't put in the effort and putting in the planning and putting in the work that you've done so that we cannot have a decent water system, okay?
Yeah, I've been whipping the engineers for the map plan report.
I see the
for
marks
2 months.
right there. There are bruises everywhere. So, don't hit them anymore. We need them well. But getting back to that, in terms of the delay, because I'm one of the folks that's been talking about the grant, and please tell me that's the WIA grant that you're talking about, because that would be so exciting, and if that's the grant we're talking about. It is having to delay this is not something that clearly that I would be the one to advocate for. But what Jack is saying, and what makes the greatest amount of sense again, is making sure that the borrowers are comfortable with what's going to be the end result, and that they understand that every contingency cannot be projected right now. You're giving us the best case, typical approximation of what the cost is going to be. Okay? So if the questions need to be answered a second time, if that getting us into August does that, so maybe a couple of people or some people, everybody's not going to be satisfied, but it is a big undertaking. And we're going to be going from a very modest water bill and a lousy system to a significant upgrade. And we want to be clear of how that's going to work out. And there are potential costs that could crop up that were not
Absolutely.
anticipated.
That's right.
And that's going to fall on the homeowners.
Right.
And we
You're
need
right.
to understand that. So there's
So
no
with
one...
saying that, I think then we should adjourn the public hearing till next month.
Yeah,
for another
that's
month.
all we're asking.
That's
now.
fine.
Okay? So now here comes the good questions.
You want to hold it till next month?
I'd like to,
Okay?
given those considerations and those concerns. Our neighbors nobody wants to get this system more than we do. Nobody wants to get this done any faster than we do. We really want to get it resolved, because we know what the second part is that we're looking forward to. And we'd like to have a big ribbon-cutting ceremony so we can stop trucking in water, replacing appliances way too early, okay? Because that's what we're doing. Because we're paying
understand.
right now. We're paying hundreds, some of us have paid thousands of dollars to compensate for the lousy service and the lousy water. So it's costing us every day that we delay.
So why don't you, if you have a list of questions, or Jack also, you have a list from those and additional ones.
Okay.
If you want to pass them to my office before the next month's meeting, so at the meeting, I can address all the questions that you have. And if you have other ones, then we finish up all the questions you have, and at that time, if the public is happy, then we'll close the public hearing and commence forming the district.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Okay. I just
Excellent.
have a couple of things. This is specific to the revolving fund, the DWS revolving fund. And I understand it's at, what, 2.5% for the 30 years? Is that what it is? 2.25%?
2.25, 2.5,
Interest?
yeah.
Now, for the first 5 years of that revolving fund, is there a lower interest rate that's available? That's my first question. And is the entire grant going to be allocated for use at one time, or is it going to be a drawdown from that loan? In other words, are we going to be responsible for paying on a loan that's only partially been drawn down?
No.
Or is it going to be the entire amount allocated and made available, and the town's going to be using that?
Right. Well, what happens is, once the board authorizes the borrowing, we're all set to go, you take bond anticipation notes. So what will happen is that a construction schedule is set. You know, over 6 months, you're going to need $600,000. That's what's borrowed for the $600,000. So the bond anticipation notes are usually at a lower rate of interest. Now they are, who knows where the rates are going. And then what happens when work is complete, then it's put into the final permanent bond. So no, you don't pay for any money that hasn't already been used to pay a contract or cost associated with the project.
Okay, I just wanted to
And
be-
it's interest only for that period of time in construction. So concept would be is that you're not going to go from day one from what you pay now up to the 902, but that would be over a period of time while the construction is taking place.
Okay. Now, my other question was, is there a lower rate at the beginning of the bond loan
The
period?
anticipation notes are normally at a lower rate of
At a
interest.
lower rate of interest? Would that
Usually,
be-
what is that, Mark?
I mean, it's market-driven, but I would guess something like 1.5%.
Right.
Now, is there a way that can be incorporated into the cost to the homeowners that it reduces our, because the number that we're given is $700 is based on the entire bond amount.
And that's the way the map plan and report has to be prepared.
Okay.
To show you what the maximum amount.
Okay,
What
so-
in reality happens is that once work starts, that number is phased into depending upon how long the project takes. So in year one, it's going to be estimated how much funds will be borrowed in an anticipation note, and the budget may not go up to the 902, it may be 602. I'm just using a number.
Right,
And
no.
then as year two, so it will rise as the need is needed until the point where we take, because don't forget, on anticipation notes, you're paying no principal, you're just paying interest.
Just interest.
So you don't get to the full number until you borrow the full amount, which could be 2 or 3 years after everything starts.
Okay, so we won't say time.
So the benefit is given to the homeowners, because your rates won't be at
All
the
right, I just wanted clarification. I wanted to be sure. So if somebody is saying, well, why are we paying this?
And
Well,
at the same token, during that period of time, if we're fortunate enough to obtain other grants, et cetera, that would pay down the debt, so that debt would not have to be passed on to the homeowners.
And that's a perfect segue into WIA. Thank you. when we're talking about the grants, I would hope, and I keep bringing that back up, since the Water Infrastructure Improvement Grant is a very viable opportunity for the Worley Homes constituents to come in with a much lower cost, given that that is, one, we are eligible, and two, we've been invited to apply. It doesn't guarantee, obviously, getting,
Right.
you know,
But
getting,
we need the
getting
district
grant.
form to be
Okay, so-
eligible
Well,
to-
no, exactly. And, well, the next submission is September of this year, and I don't
We're
think
not
you're going
gonna
to make
make
that date.
Nope.
So that month is not really going to kill that grant, given the time frame, because the
Yeah, but just
submission.
bear in mind, we get on all kinds of projects, we get notices all the time. We're going to
All
talk
the
later about
time.
a grant that, okay, here's a grant opportunity, deadline's in 30 days. That's how much notice we're given oftentimes. So
Exactly.
even though it may not be that grant program, there's nothing to say another program doesn't come across the monitor, 3 months from now.
Which would be
That's a new program, and you got 30 days to respond, and either the district is formed or it's not, so.
A perfect example is this, I had to put an addition to the agenda for the grant application for Route 82 improvements. This came up just this week. They said we have to hurry up, get a letter of intent to apply for the grant, and possibly we could get funded. So we're,
And it
it's a
can be, and
fire
it-
drill.
Yeah, it is, and sometimes, you're almost saying, guys, could you give us 40 days instead of 30?
Yeah.
To turn it around. The good-
31.
Exactly, but the good news is that you have some very skilled people on board, and you have the outside engineering and your
Planner.
grant writing folks that have, you're a planner who has grant writing experience, I think that's the
Yes,
individual.
yeah, she's
So
very
there's a
good.
lot of skilled people in-house that, gives us the confidence that that can happen. With the WIA grant, it is a matter of that project being ready to move, okay? And that's the key for that one. And the other key to that one is if it's under $3 million, it can pay up to 60% of the cost of that. That's a huge saving for
Sure,
the district.
absolutely.
Okay? So, yeah, and I'm hoping that, in looking at that, that the town looks at that as incorporating it in, as they're doing with the WSR revolving fund, and look at WIA as part of the funding package for Worley Homes.
Well, we'll certainly look into it, but it'd be disingenuous to have the residents think that that grant was already in play for us. So that's why it's not utilized in the map plan and report. The other loan is a subsidized interest loan, which has already been offered to us from a different source. So obviously, any other grants that come in during the process, they'll be factored into what the ultimate costs are. But for us to get to that point, we have to have a district ready to go.
And we're going to get there, and we'll have a great big party. We'll throw all the water jugs and bottles that we've been using, put them in a big pile in the middle of the road. I said the R word, put them in the middle of the road and then leave them there and celebrate that we won't have to do that anymore. Grants are not a given. They are competitive, they're hard to get, and they're not guaranteed. But half the battle is knowing that you're, one, eligible, and two, an invitation to apply. So, and the time frame is still there for that one. With respect to other grants that come along, there are a number of secondary issues with respect to taking over Hopewell Services. There's the property that goes with that. There's a facility on the property. All of that needs to be, that's in bad shape. Okay, so there needs to be dollars for that. There may be a grant that comes, that's there.
Absolutely.
That doesn't require that the district be in place. So there may be grants that come in that don't have the same criteria, that, grants come in with different criteria. So we may meet a different criteria even though the district hasn't been formed. And we would hope that the town, because in looking at the map, the plan, there are some issues that we're talking about, additional pipes that might have to be going in. There are other things that need to be addressed that in keeping the costs down so it doesn't, impact the homeowners or minimize the impact, financial impact on the homeowners that the town has been looking at. So maybe in looking at those grants, even though the district hasn't been formed, it may address secondary and third-tier issues
But
that
the-
can be taken care
But the
of.
property you allude to, we can't do anything to, we're not eligible for money, because we don't own it until we own the water system. And we
Right, and-
can't own the water system until we progress the process, establish the district, get all the approvals I outlined, and close and take title.
Okay,
And
well,
we're
let's-
eligible for a grant to clean up the
And we
problem.
still have to get the easement situation handled, so there's still some bubbles
That's in
out
the
there.
contract, and that's in, that's going to.
They have
that's-
resolved one of
that
the
They have to
questions.
resolve it
Right.
before anything else, so.
Right, so I mean, there's
And-
still some, there's
And
still
we're
a
going to
couple
hold,
bubbles
you know,
out
we're
there.
going to keep the money in escrow until they do. If not, that we'll use those dollars to obtain the easements or the license we need to cross the channel over there. But why don't you get me the questions and any others that you need, and then we'll continue the public hearing next month.
Sounds like a plan, gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing till August 30th, 2018 at 7 PM. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Okay, motion passed, thank you. Okay, so next is courtesy of the floor. If anybody would like to come up and speak about any resolutions on the agenda tonight, or any other issues in the town that you wish to address, please come forward. Now is the time to discuss that. Anybody?
Well, Nick, I have a couple of things that I want to discuss, if you don't mind,
Okay.
just briefly. I know at the last meeting that we had last month,
Do you want to do this at the end?
well, I'd rather do it now. I mean, if it's only going to take a couple of minutes.
Okay.
At the June 28th town hall meeting of the town board, there was a gentleman in the community that addressed the board. I think he addressed the town supervisor with certain concerns regarding the hours that they were cut out or cut off at the Limekiln facility in order to pay for the work that we've done to upgrade certain buildings in the town hall.
Okay.
And just a general understanding to the community that at the time, that night, I mentioned that in the year 2009, 2010, the town board was ready to acquire a piece of property on Old Seven Lake Road. It's called Sport and Wellness. And I remember that night I was vague about the figures, but I did do some research. And I believe at the time, the town was ready to buy that property for $1.8 million. And the property was about 47,000 square feet property, the building. It had some tennis courts and some swimming pools. The intent of the town was to re-up that building for basketball.
But did we do any of this?
That never came up for a vote.
Okay.
I just wanted to know if this was something we did, or...
If you give me a couple of
Into?
seconds,
Okay.
I'll, because I know, Nick, you were not involved at the town, nor was Mr. Franco, so,
But I'm sorry, maybe, and I don't know, you're right. Was this something they thinking of doing, but they didn't do?
well, it was up for a vote for buying the property.
But they didn't buy
Mr.
it?
Cassidy was on the board then, so he's probably the only one, besides our town lawyer and the town engineer, that were present at the time that this acquisition was going to take place. Why am I bringing this up is the fact of the matter is that that property was supposed to be purchased for $1.8 million. There was going to be about $3.6 million in upgrades. According to the previous town supervisor, the total price for the finalization of the project was going to be $5.4 million. At that time, the assessed value of the property was $2.6 million. The town taxes and county taxes were $13,486.21. The school tax were $33,603.56. So the total tax dollars were $47,089.77. Why am I bringing this up is the fact of the matter is that at the time, this was very close to a purchasing from the town, for the town, by the town board. And there were about, I did a little research also, I believe $2.3 million at the recreation fund at that time. So the rest was going to be bonded. I also wanted to know, to let the community know that when we bond, we borrow for the community. Also, the town supervisor at that meeting, I have the transcript, which I read, he told the community again, it's only going to cost $22 per year.
Whatever it was, right?
You know, this is symbolic because every time the town wants to do something, we simplify the figures to the $22, the $32, the $33.
But I still don't understand,
Well,
we didn't do any of this.
Just give me a second, and you'll
Uh-oh.
realize what I'm talking
Okay.
about at the end of what I'm saying. So that gentleman over there that night that addressed you, town supervisor, and myself, he was saying that we took something away that we gave him. I believe that the town board of the town of East Fishkill, we are not to give handouts to anybody in the community, but rather to take care of the community as a whole. Our main interest is to make sure that the well-being of every citizen in this community is really taken care of. We have priorities. I believe that, and I stress it again, some of the priorities at this time for this town board are to pave roads. We haven't done that, even though the funds have been given in the past. We don't know how many miles of roads have been paved or not paved. The bottom line is that money was going to be borrowed for recreational purposes. And to answer that gentleman that you gave us something, then you're taking it away. And he mentioned the name Bob. And I also want to refresh, I know who Bob is. And he's a veteran, but he's a veteran that I don't think he needs the $10 or $11 an hour that the town is giving him for a couple hours a week that he serves at that facility. But he kept on stressing the veteran fact. Okay, and the bottom line is that certain people have to understand in the community that we over here are not like the Red Cross. We're not here to give anything away. Sometimes we have to make adjustments. And again, I think I'm responding for you tonight, because I didn't make those changes. I think they came from you, right?
I've addressed everybody who's called me.
And I think that you also changed the hours again, am I correct?
I added 2 hours or
Okay.
3 hours on Saturday
So
morning.
I just want to make a point that just because somebody comes up to the podium and says, I want to be at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning, so we'll have to sacrifice taxpayers' dollars to accommodate that one individual. Okay? My point to the whole discussion tonight is that in the past, we were investing millions of dollars, okay, in something that we were creating as an idea. Let's build and they will come. I hope that this town board and this town supervisor from now on does not cave in to these kind of needs and desires, but that we work together to take care of the whole community as a whole.
No, and absolutely. I think that's why we established a recreational, what was the committee we
Advised.
started?
Recreational master plan.
Master Plan Committee, so they could plan on these things. So when the funds come into the Recreation Development Fund, so the public knows that those funds can only be utilized for recreation in the town of East Fishkill. We cannot utilize those funds for anything else but recreation. So, to aid the town board in making those decisions, we create a recreational board, and now we have also a recreational master plan board. Because for many, many years, the rec director and many people in the community have suggested that they would like an indoor facility for basketball, or they would like so many different things. So
Full-day camp.
Full-day camp, many, many people always ask for full-day camp, yes. So possibly when we do have enough dollars in those those funds, then we could plan properly. But yeah, I agree, that's what that's for, and
So one other point I want to make in conclusion is that $47,000 a year, $47,889. This property would have come off the tax map. And I want the community to understand that every time we pull property off the tax map, everyone in this room, everybody in the community picks up those tax dollars. We pick up additional money that we have to come up for that money that comes off the tax roll. So it is important to understand when we're talking about acquisition and taking property off the tax map, once the town owns that property, we no longer pay taxes on it. But the rest of the community picks up whatever we don't pay, and they pay the fair share in order to take care of the schools and the town and the county taxes. That's extremely important to understand. I know that I've said this before, and another point that I want to make, I've said it to the Recreation Board and to the Advisory Board of the Recreation. We build these facilities, somebody's got to maintain it. So we do have the money to build them. Okay, who's going to maintain these properties? That property maintenance, those people that we have in recreation to take care of the fields and the buildings, the salaries come from the general fund.
Councilman, are you talking about something that we didn't pass, or something that 4 or 5
Well,
years
this
down
is
the road?
for
we're
the general
talking about? Because
population
what
to
you're talking about
understand.
is, you're talking about something that we didn't even take on.
Well, this was something before your time. I was sitting in
I'm
those
very-
seats.
Yeah, so was I, and I
I
remember.
have never seen you in those seats, but that's near here nor there. But the point is that this is something that almost happened, and it's something that
Almost
we might go there again, because I
I don't
hear,
think it went past the Recreation Advisory
Well,
Board.
we might go
Tom,
there
do you
again. My
remember,
point,
did it ever get past the Rec Advisory Board?
Yeah, it came to us.
It was in a discussion. There were two things. One was a dome that was proposed over here in the rec field, which progressed further. And then there was discussions, but we could never get a price from the Sylvan Lake Tennis
Right.
Club to buy it, the right price. It was certainly discussed at meetings.
well, this specific night, Tom, it was the night that this was going to be passed on. You were there, and you
But it
remember this
wasn't.
very clearly.
It wasn't,
It was up for a vote.
no, of the town board to consider, but it was never
The
voted.
acquisition, to consider
But
the
the town board
acquisition.
didn't vote to do that.
Right, it's considered the acquisition.
Right.
The 3.6 million, in order to buy it, in my opinion, you had to know what the backside was gonna cost you. The same as the day that the lake over on Lake Walton was brought up that we wanted to buy, that we pertained to. That's the same type. We needed the backup information. And I remember going over to Scott, looking at that piece of property. And there was one or two board members that wanted it, yes. Did it ever have support? I don't even think the neighbors wanted us to buy it. Because if the town owned it and threw a lot more traffic there in a residential development, and we considered that, we also considered 52, didn't we, Bill? The small dome. That was considered too.
well, I think the best thing happened. They didn't buy it.
They didn't buy it?
We got Lime Kiln.
Oh, but the
we got
reason
a
that we
good
didn't buy
facility
it,
there.
the reason that we didn't buy it is not because the town board hadn't already decided. And Peter, the discussion that we had about Lake Walton Road at a discussion meeting,
Yep.
that was just a discussion, a preliminary. What
And
you
then I-
were
and then I
discussing
asked
that
for
night.
more information that
Right,
night.
what you were discussing that night, you already had all the figures. The town engineer ran the figures, the cost of upgrading, the cost of maintaining, the upcoming costs. So all the figures were there, so it was a little different discussion. But why am I bringing this up? I just wanted the Rec Advisory Board to be cautious how we spend the tax dollars that are not in yet.
It's not.
And the bottom line is, we need to maintain these buildings in the future. Do we have the money to maintain it? That is the whole point of this discussion. Thank you.
Hi, I'll be real brief because I'd like to get to the presentations of the police. I just want to say one thing about the building you brought up. I was on a committee with some town board members. We went and visited Sport and Wellness, and the majority of us saw how much work would be needed to make that even close to being usable. The location, the status of which the building was in then, the fields, everything was in disrepair, we decided that it would not be beneficial to anyone, and as a group, town board members, rec members, and so on, we said no. We never saw if you look at it now, thousands and thousands of dollars were put in to make that whole area usable today. And we did look at other areas, but we had a vote in 2008 for a dome right here on the McGrath property. It went down by 50 votes. That would have settled all of these problems. It happened to be on a proposition on the back of the ballot. People didn't see it. We would have none of these discussions today if in 2008 we passed it. Now I'd like to get on to the ceremonies. Thank you.
Well, Bill, you know how much that building was bought for just a couple of years ago?
Well, they had to keep lowering because no one
No one wanted it.
$700,000.
Right, and they wanted us to pay $1,750,000, I think. And that was the big glitch, is they wouldn't come down in their price at that time.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak on any general town issues or anything on the agenda? No? Okay, with that, let's start the resolutions. I have a lot of brass up here to give away. So, first resolution is appoint the chief of police. Whereas Police Chief Kevin Keefe retired on June 21st, 2018, and Lieutenant Matt Orsino was appointed interim chief of police in the Dutchess County Civil Service, has since administered the chief's test. The town board requested and reviewed the Dutchess County Civil Service list, and that the town board appoints Matt Orsino as the East Fishkill Police Chief, and it is appropriate to enter into an annexed employment agreement with the chief who is non-union, and the salary and benefits reflected in said agreement are consistent with those provided in the PBA collective bargaining agreement, that the supervisor be and hereby is authorized to execute the employment agreement with the chief of police, and be it further resolved that the terms and conditions of said agreement shall be contained therein. Do I have a motion to appoint Matt Orsino as our chief of police?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We can have the judge administer the oath. Would you like to hold the Bible? Judge?
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Matthew Orsino,
I, Matthew Orsino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States of America,
to uphold the laws of the Constitution of the United States of America
and the laws and Constitution of the State of New York,
and the laws of the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge my duties
and will faithfully discharge my duties
as Chief, East Fishkill Town Police,
as Chief, East Fishkill Town Police,
to the best of my abilities.
to the best of my abilities,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, Chief.
Should have practiced.
Pictures? No?
Somebody sent it to me.
Way to go, Matt.
Okay. More to come. Resolution number 2. Councilman Marinaro, would you read that, please?
Whereas there are vacant positions in the police department for lieutenant, sergeant, and detective, the chief of police has asked the East Fishkill Town Board to promote the following positions: and Detective Sergeant John Wood to lieutenant, Detective Paul Gaston to sergeant, and Officer Gregory Stannis to detective. The town board has reviewed the Dutchess County Civil Service lists and has interviewed said candidates, and that the town board promotes Detective Sergeant John Wood to lieutenant, Detective Paul Gaston to sergeant, and Officer Gregory Stannis to detective for the East Fishkill Police Department. And be further resolved that for their compensation and benefit shall be in accordance with the existing collective bargaining agreement. And be further resolved that said appointment are subject to the probationary period as set forth in the civil service law. And be further resolved that these appointments shall be effective on July 27, 2018.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to authorize the promotions in the police department?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Congratulations, gentlemen. Lieutenant Gaston? Oh. Lieutenant Wood, come forward, please. Mrs. Wood?
Raise your right hand. I, John Wood, solemnly swear to uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States of America, the laws and Constitution of the state of New York, and will faithfully discharge my duties as lieutenant to the best of my abilities.
All three, and then we'll do the pictures. Okay, very good. Sergeant Gaston.
And the Bible, raise your right hand. I, Paul Gaston, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the laws, the Constitution of the laws of the United States of America, and the laws and Constitution of the state of New York, and will faithfully discharge my duties as Sergeant, East Fishkill Police Department. To the best of my abilities.
Detective Stannis.
Repeat after me. I, Gregory Stannis. Solemnly swear. To uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States of America. And the laws and Constitution of the state of New York. And I will faithfully discharge my duties as detective, East Fishkill Police Department. To the best of my abilities. So help me God.
Stand up.
I'd like to see your detail tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everybody going? Everybody going?
You're gonna get yours on the 22nd.
There's no other place to
Anybody work? Great job. Hey, Ryan. What? Who's working the road?
Detective,
It
good
isn't
to see you,
Tina.
Detective.
It isn't Tina because she's in.
All right, thank you. We're gonna continue.
Polino, can you throw all these guys out?
Clear the room.
Where's the party?
Yeah, where's,
Where's the party?
Deanna,
where's the after party?
Deanna,
Okay.
you're still in charge over there, don't worry. Thanks. Don't pay attention to any of them.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Very nice.
How you doing?
Congratulations.
What's girls doing? So reserved.
Okay.
I know. I'll tell him later.
Oh, wait 1 second.
I didn't want to kick him
Where you going? I know, I'm not.
To the restroom.
table. No problem. We can.
You guys can move up to the front now if you want.
I can talk
You just gotta take the signs off.
And I was almost
At a Gallagher concert?
and I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Now Gallagher, the watermelon.
Oh, was it Gallagher?
Yeah. Gallagher.
This guy in his letter says.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, resolution number 3. Deputy Supervisor, would you read number 3, please?
Whereas the supervisor has proposed the establishment of a peddler's permit committee, as be the peddler's permit committee
Get the glasses on. Peter.
would assist the town
committee.
board in planning and the board in the process of approving various peddler's permits. And whereas the goals and objectives of this committee is to streamline and modernize the peddler's permit process, and whereas the town board endorses and adopts this concept, now therefore it be it resolved that the peddler's permit revision committee is hereby adopted and established. Be it further resolved that the peddler's permit revision committee is hereby established and will consist of the town planner, police chief, and the town clerk.
Thank you, Councilman. So, a little background on this. We have had some instances where the peddler's permit was sometimes less than desirable, I should say. So we came up with this process to take a further look at a couple things before we send it to the clerk for the final okay for the permit. And, I'm sorry, and we would have a three-person committee of the town planner, the chief of police, and the town clerk to review these applications. And if the chief isn't able to attend, then the chief would send somebody in his stead, and the town planner and clerk, et cetera. So Do I have a motion to authorize the establishment of the Peddler's Permit Revision Committee?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion.
As it stands now, Nick, I believe the process is that they bring an application to the town clerk, and as of right now, I believe it's just a review by the chief of police and
Well, it depends on the
the
type
planning
of,
board. How does that work,
type
Tom?
of a permit it is.
It depends, it's, and East
Stationary.
Fishkill has a very unusual thing, is a peddler traditionally is someone who goes door to door selling goods, wares, or services. So you can get a peddler's permit here, and I think the purpose of this committee with respect to that aspect of it is to review the criteria for issuing these permits, to make more formal the do not disturb list, because peddlers, when they come in, would be given a copy of a list of residents who have indicated they don't want people coming to the door. So that's one part of it. The second part we have in the zoning ordinance is a stationary peddler's special permit, which is kind of contradictory, and that provision allows the planning board to grant approval for a peddler to stay stationary in one place for up to a year. And I believe that it was crafted and put into the town zoning ordinance in the 1990s to enable one business to continue as a vendor in that status. And that's given rise to some problems because even though they're temporary, they use up parking spaces, parking area, things like that. So the purpose of this committee is to kind of revisit both of those laws, try to reconcile them and make recommendations to the town board.
So tonight, what are we voting on? Just to create a committee to
Is
make
to-
recommendation, and then the final
Correct.
approval
Oh,
will
it
be
has to
by the
come
town
back to the
board?
town board.
Okay.
because town
Right,
board is
remember,
all
Councilman, we had a problem a few,
Yeah.
right, okay? So,
So you're gonna come up with recommendations, and suggestions, and then we're gonna re-go over it and
right, because there was
Recraft
problems with
Peddler and
traffic,
everything.
there was
Yeah.
problems with traffic concerns and other things that sometimes, I don't know, maybe the planning board or somebody else didn't oversee, or we had other ideas that the engineer might hear some complaints from the public, and then we could incorporate that. The planning board might not understand that or know those complaints. So now in the future, we'll have a better grasp of reoccurring permits and what the problems were in the past.
and base suggestions to the board to
Yes,
revise
Right.
Yeah,
it based
to
on.
revise it. It would have, the law would have to be revised eventually.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to have a public hearing for all of it.
Right, yeah, this is just for a committee
Just a
to review
committee,
the
yeah.
application, and the law remains the same. It goes to the clerk for the final stamp of approval. So I have a motion and a second. Oh, I'm sorry, any other discussion? No? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Number 4, declare equipment surplus. Councilman Bepan, would you read that, please?
Whereas the town police chief has provided the town board with a list of equipment which he has deemed to be of no further use to the town and thus should be considered surplus. And whereas the following are being requested to be declared surplus material to be disposed of. And so for the police, the HP Proliant DL320 server, an Angel encoder, 2 triplet UPS Smart 2200 RM, 2 Dell PowerEdge servers, a Netgear router or switch, an APC Smart UPS. So whereas the town board has reviewed said list and concurs, and now therefore be it resolved that the surplus items are no longer in working order, and be it further resolved that the non-working equipment is to be disposed of properly.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, do I have a motion to declare certain property to be surplus?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
How do they trash this?
I don't know.
How do they destroy the computers out of that building?
It's like recycled.
Oh, they bring them to the funeral home.
Yeah, they've got,
They can roll out carting and leave it on the side of the road?
no, they have,
That's the process.
they have methods of eliminating all the data that's on any computer and.
The police have methods, Peter.
Bottom of the
Not to be disclosed.
We have a new chief now. He's gonna have new
He's done an
methods,
awful lot. He's
okay?
been in there for 15 minutes. He's had 2 resolutions already.
All right.
Tom, one question about the, I forgot to ask before, the peddler's permit. I know that there's been
Oh,
a
hold
lot
on,
of...
can I just finish the vote and then you can
Oh, I'm
ask?
sorry, I
That's
thought we
okay.
already voted on it. All right,
No,
go
we have a
ahead.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you.
So as far as there were some people in town, from out of town, that they were knocking on doors, insecticides company. There's
Right.
been a lot of complaint. Would that fall under this category?
It would be under this category, and one of the things they'll probably recommend to you is to increase the penalty.
Yeah.
Because right now, the penalty is, I think, 25 or 50 bucks.
it's not.
And that doesn't deter these people. And also to change the language, modernize it, to hold not only the salesperson responsible, but the company they represent if they fail to comply with the peddler's law.
And also,
Those
the
are the
chief of
types of
police
things.
brought that up when that came up, because we had a complaint, a few complaints about that. And we discussed that with the attorney and the chief of police, and there was some language in the law, Tom, that said that it was a misdemeanor, actually.
Right, it's inconsistent with what current law
Right,
is,
so we had to, we'll probably have to clean that up.
Correct.
Yeah.
We did get a lot of calls, right, from the police department?
Yes, sir, we did.
Yes. I do too.
I'm still receiving emails.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we ever apprehend anybody or find anybody?
The way the current law is written, we should not. Check them out to make sure they're valid, they say they are, and we send them on their way. If there
Okay.
are any issues, other issues, we will deal with them. On a case-by-case.
Like I said, maybe we should revisit the law
Yes.
and have a public hearing on it, because the way it's written now would be a misdemeanor, and it's not consistent with what we have, so. Okay, thank you. Number 5, memorandum of understanding for intermunicipal collaboration to promote sustainable water and wastewater systems. The city of Beacon, town of East Fishkill, town of Fishkill, village of Fishkill, town of Wappingers, village of Wappingers are hereby referred as participants in the above-named agreement. The supervisor and town board are interested in entering into an agreement that the annex a memorandum of understanding is hereby accepted and approved, and be it further resolved that the supervisor being hereby is authorized to execute the memorandum of understanding with the above municipalities. So, how this came about, this is a memorandum, a MOU, a memorandum of understanding for intermunicipal collaboration to promote sustainable water and wastewater systems. So how this came about is myself and several other supervisors of Wappingers, Fishkill, the mayors of Fishkill and the village of Wappingers, got together and we were discussing how we can help each other in the form of water and sewer, how we can share it and share the costs and the infrastructure and the regulatory requirements and the long-term planning. It's very expensive, it's very tedious process to get town water and sewer. And we felt that if we combine our forces, that we could do it in a better and cheaper way. So we put together a agreement that says that we will work together to help these systems, the challenges of what I said, to protect the aquifer and protect the reservoir and aging infrastructure, regulatory requirements, all these sort of things. We'll help each other because it helps us all expand the level of economic and investment opportunities that each town is looking for. We're all looking for the same thing, to provide water and sewer at the cheapest rate possible. And if we have water and sewer, like the councilman said before, build it, they will come. Well, they will come for that. Because I have many businesses that are knocking on the door, asking all the time, what about water and sewer? What about water and sewer? They can't expand their business without it. So we discussed this together with those towns and villages, and we came up with this agreement where we'll meet several times a year to discuss where we can help each other in that process. So this is the beginning of that, and I brought it to the town board, to their attention, so they can approve me to sign the agreement. It doesn't bind us to anything, just that we will help each other. So do I have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion.
Yeah, Nick, I read this document. First of all, who prepared this?
It was all of us, all the towns, we all had a say.
So a couple of clarifications. What it says, Article 3,
Page
page...
2?
There is no page, but I
on the
think
bottom.
it's Article...
Yeah, page 2, working group.
Yeah, working group.
Okay,
It
go ahead.
says one representative of each municipality. Who's going to represent our municipality? Is it going to be you?
Yeah, the town supervisor usually. And then we said that we'll alternate the chairmanship of the board so that it rotates every, I believe it says participants agree to alternate the chairmanship if any board or committee form on a yearly basis.
So the next page, I believe, is Article 4.
Yes?
Okay, there is a paragraph over there, sustainability of a community water and water system, wastewater systems. So, sustainable water and wastewater system are critical to ensuring the sustainability of development of communities.
Right.
Emphasis on promoting asset management planning, water and energy efficiency practices.
Right.
I don't know why that was thrown in there. That's one thing.
Because, probably because to run any of these facilities, water and sewer plants, that's probably our largest cost in energy payments. The sewer system that we have across the street is by far the largest energy producer, right? Not producer, taker.
Yeah, I think it's probably 50,000 a year or something.
50,000 a year. So if we could curb those costs somehow, we
Oh,
want to do it.
that's not very specific. It says water, emphasis on promoting asset management planning, water, and energy efficiency practices.
Right, so-
That does not refer to the water.
Sure it does.
It
Emphasis
does-
on
it
promoting
doesn't.
asset management
Then it goes
planning.
on, and other sustainable utility management practices.
Okay.
Important to ensuring long-term technical managerial, okay. The next paragraph, encourage system-wide planning that takes into consideration sustainability goals.
Right.
Then the next line underneath, evaluation of the green solutions such as green infrastructure.
Right. So,
And we skip over words, energy management, water conservation, communities are sustainable. So I know I've used this term in the past. I don't know if anybody other than Mr. Wood heard the term Agenda 21 and
I
their
think that,
implication.
I think you're on a different
I am?
vibe. Yeah. Here,
Well,
let me give you a gist of what we're thinking.
Let me just say why I make these statements.
Okay.
We've been attending the meetings that we have once a year with the Association of Towns.
Okay.
And I've taken some classes where they talk about, with the planners, just what we're talking in these two paragraphs, how to restrict and how not to allow certain things to happen in certain communities. And I've addressed those issues at those meetings with the chairman of the Association of Towns. And he told me that that message came from the governor, that the governor of New York State is very much into all these three things that you put into these lines over here.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that even though these things were put in here, and there might be a dual understanding of what that efficiency mean, energy efficiency, sustainability, I know what those words mean.
Okay, so in saying that, and I don't know what the governor says or what he thinks, I care about what we're going to do for our towns that are going to help each other. Energy management, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's a good thing, right? We have to manage the amount of energy that we use so we can economically spend less money, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Number two, water conservation. We got to try and conserve water as much as possible because we need a high demand. That's why we rehab our wells and spend so much money to we spend so much money to help facilitate water districts and get people clean drinking water. So in order for them to get it as cheap as possible, like Worley Homes and others, we look to water conservation management practices. So we can get it cheaper for them. In the end, our goal as this town board, and I know you agree, that we want to make it as affordable as possible. So the evaluation of green solutions such as green infrastructure, what could that be? Maybe solar panels to help cut the costs of the energy that we use, water reuse strategies, that's the same as water conservation. Maybe we take in the water, these are all things to help cut costs. That's my idea, that's the other town's idea, and I know that's your idea.
Right, just, we're not going to go into a lengthy discussion, maybe we should have you and I a private discussion about this. Even the solar panels that are so affordable to the communities right now, it is so because the government subsidizes the majority of the cost. And if that was not subsidized by the government, the taxpayers, those solar panels will not be so affordable. Okay, so we will probably, I just want to address that, I don't know how much of a need in creating this document. All these little paragraphs over here are kind of like, there is a dual understanding of what their meaning is.
If that's what you think, that's fine, and I respect you for that, but I think the whole idea of this is to help the community have clean water in any way possible and to make it as affordable as possible. And I don't think any of us disagree that that's our goal on this board.
Also, the last paragraph, Article 8, it says that this document shall become effective upon the signatures, and it shall remain in effect for an indefinite duration. Is it possible to make that duration a determined amount of time, let's say 5 years?
Well,
And
the
then at the end of 5 years,
The
we could
next
go back?
paragraph says you can withdraw in 30 days' notice.
I'm sorry?
The next paragraph says the town can withdraw by giving 30 days' notice.
Right.
So that would,
So
so
that
it's
is-
30-day agreement at your option.
Also, I should like to point out that the town of Fishkill and, the
Town of Wappinger.
town of
passed it on
Wappinger's already
Tuesday.
passed this unanimously.
Well, it's okay if any other town has passed it. I mean, we just
Well,
want to
it's,
make sure that if we pass something, and I'm all in favor of doing something as far as water is concerned, but when we create a document, there are certain things that we want to make sure that we clarify so that, a year or two from now, I know that in the past, certain documentation that we have created have created certain issues for the people that came afterwards. That is all the comments I have about that.
Now, other people can go to this meeting, correct?
I guess so, it's a public meeting, absolutely.
So what I'm
sure
saying
it'll be
is
a
if we
working
wanted to go,
document
we
when
could
you
go
guys
with
will
them.
be
It
able to
Right.
doesn't,
Things also.
it isn't just you, it could be the other people.
Right, absolutely, and even just this week, I discussed the supervisor from the town of Wappinger's called about they're possibly going to look into expanding their well fields that are right across the Sprout Creek, which border our town. So he called me, he says, since we're doing this, is there any way you could possibly benefit from it? And if so, that's why I contacted the engineer, had our engineer contact their engineer to see what really is there, because I don't know how it is with the infrastructure, what needs to be done. Our engineer would know best, but these are the things that we have to do in order to get it the most cost-effective for the residents. So we're trying to help each other. That's the goal here.
Yeah, I want to say that I sat in on the Town of Wappinger's board meeting on Tuesday, and they were very ecstatic when they passed this unanimously. So we look forward to working with them, and I'd also like to commend the committee on focusing on efficient and sustainable practices. I think it's great that we're trying to save the taxpayers' dollars and also focus on the environment, because that also means a lot to us here in East Fishkill.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion?
Do you mind just explaining how they save taxpayers' dollars?
I think the supervisor did that before, just through efficiency alone, saving water, saving energy. That saves the taxpayers' dollars, less usage.
good? Anybody else? Okay, so did I have a motion?
We have a
as-
motion and a second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Number 6, acknowledge seasonal hirings. Deputy Supervisor Cassidy, would you read that?
Whereas the highway superintendent has interviewed and hired a part-time seasonal laborer for the highway department, and whereas the highway superintendent has submitted a memo to the town board, and now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby acknowledge the hiring of Michael Vinci at an hourly rate of $12.75 as a part-time seasonal laborer in the highway, and be it further resolved, on completion of his task, Michael Vinci will be removed from the payroll.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Supervisor. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the hiring of seasonal labor for the highway?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Number 7, authorize McGrath Field scoreboard installation. Councilman Franco, please.
Whereas the Recreation Advisory Board has reviewed and has submitted to the town board for their approval of the following project, scoreboard installation for McGrath Field. It is the desire of the town board to authorize the appropriate funds, and now therefore be it resolved that the town concurs with the Recreation Advisory Board and authorizes the improvements to the above-mentioned facility, and be it further resolved that the town board does hereby appropriate from the Rec Development Fund the sum up to $5,800 for said projects.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to authorize scoreboard installation for McGrath Field?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? The McGrath Field scoreboard, it was donated by the McGrath
The
family?
McGrath family, that's
McGrath
correct.
family. It's named after Don McGrath, who was head of our Recreation Advisory Board for many, many years. He was an excellent, excellent man. He passed away several years ago, and the family has donated this, and the rest of the costs are for the installation.
And thanks to football and lacrosse for their effort, making an effort to make a donation for that as well.
Great, thank
So
you.
again, that's everybody working together, which we like to see in rec.
So, is this 5,800 total, or is it
No, it's
5,800
up
plus
to,
30?
because the scoreboard's not installed yet.
Yep.
And the money from football and lacrosse hasn't been received. So until that's the case, that's why it says up to.
Says up to,
1,500.
so
It's
we,
5,800, and we're gonna get money back.
we're gonna get
Any money
2,000
that's not-
possibly.
You're right, any money that's not used in that 5,800, it's gonna go back to the rec development fund.
So if we get what the donations that they say, it
Then
should
it's a-
cost the Rec Development Fund $2,300.
Yep.
Okay? Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Okay, the additions, number 1 is acknowledge hirings for the Highway Department. We had, I'll do that at the end. Councilman Pepan, could you read that, please?
Of course. Whereas the highway superintendent has interviewed and hired one full-time seasonal laborer, Ryan Renack, and one temporary full-time laborer, Reed Ferris, for the highway department, and whereas the highway superintendent has submitted a memo to the town board, and therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby acknowledge the hiring of Ryan Renack and a full-time seasonal laborer at an hourly rate of $11.25, and Reed Ferris as a temporary full-time laborer at an hourly rate of $18.03 at the highway department. Be it further resolved, upon completion of their task, Ryan Renack and Reed Ferris will be removed from the payroll.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the hirings for the Highway Department?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. So this is these are full-time seasonal. They'll come off the payroll once their tasks are completed. It's been tough to find people, actually, this year for the highway. We've had a couple that have just fizzled out and left, but that's why we had to add this on. So any other discussion? I'm sorry. No? I have a motion and a second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Okay, number 2, authorize the change of August Town Board meeting, public hearing. Councilman Franco, would you read that?
Sure. Whereas due to conflicting schedules, the supervisor is requesting to change the August 23rd, 2018 meeting to August 30th, 2018. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board shall set August 30th, 2018 as its regularly scheduled meeting. Be it further resolved that the public hearing for the proposed zoning amendment will also be held on August 30th, 2018. Be it further resolved that the town clerk shall duly advertise said meeting date change.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to authorize the change of the meeting?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The discussion is, I mentioned this before, Councilman Beepan and I have been invited to the White House to attend a conference.
That's in the Bronx, isn't it? Oh, no.
No, Washington
Fishkill.
DC.
Fishkill.
And
Oh, it's my castle.
it is on August 23rd, the night that we would have the town board meeting. So we will have the public hearing and the town board meeting on the 30th, and now we will also have the second public hearing. Clerk, we'll have another public hearing, excuse me, for the 30th, 2 public hearings. So I have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Okay, number 3, the grant application for Route A to improve, a very important. Councilman Marinaro, would you read that?
That's authorizing grant application. Okay. That's
Yep, that's it.
3A?
Yeah.
Whereas the town of East Fishkill is seeking funding for traffic and roadway improvements to improve walkway, reduce congestion, and support economic development and revitalization within the Opal Junction Omelet. And whereas the town of East Fishkill is eligible to apply for funding through the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program on Route 82 safety improvements, congestion reductions, and traffic flow and pedestrian improvements along the Route 82 corridor between Trinket Lane and Unity Streets with a connection to Fishkill Road in Opal Junction. And whereas the Toll Brothers previously committed funds for traffic improvements for Fishkill Road related to the construction of the Opal Glen subdivision, and the remaining $500,000 will be committed to this project as part of the required local match. And now therefore be it resolved that the town supervisor is here authorizing the town staff to submit a grant application to the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program in the amount not to exceed $6,250,000, including 20% local match to construct the Route 82 safety improvements, congestion reduction, traffic flow, and pedestrian improvements along Route 82 corridor between Trinket Lane and Unity Street with a connection to Fishkill Road in Opal Junction.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to accept this important resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. So, Engineer, could you give us a little brief overview on this, how this came upon us this week?
Well, yes, it was rather short notice. We had met with DOT representatives a couple weeks ago to discuss a potential project that's been presented at workshops in the past here for the improvement along 82 and tying in Fishkill Road. And then just last week, the opportunity came along for this grant program that we've been working on rather hastily, but, you know, we're confident we can get this application in by the deadline of August 16th. It's really, this project is a culmination of 2 things. One, trying to eliminate the suicide lanes on Route 82. Our daily traffic counts approaching 20,000 cars a day, at which point suicide lanes just become, you know, non-functional. And prior to that, Hopewell Glen resolution had allowed for a off-site improvement to reconfigure Fishkill Road, and through several studies between the DEC and the railroad, it came about that the best connection point would be through the rear of Unity Plaza. So it's kind of a marriage of these 2 projects to help alleviate traffic, and that allows us to use Toll Brothers funds towards this project to help support the match. So, you know, we're hopeful that I think the project has a lot of merit and meets a lot of the criteria. I think it was like a 27-page application we had to go through with all these different, nothing like the Carroll Drive Bridge. That was a very straightforward application. This is much, much more involved, but we are able to check off many of the boxes that are required to get this grant, so we're hopeful that maybe we will.
Okay, yeah, we're hopeful we could get it. It's, that would be, that would be great, not to incur any costs if we could get the grant. Any other discussion? And so everybody knows it is for the grant application. No? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Thank you very much. That's it for resolutions. Any budget transfers?
Not tonight.
Not tonight. Okay, I have real quick, the Sons of Italy want to present us a check. Would somebody come up, please?
Yeah, well, Jim Teresi, I'm the president of the Sons of Italy, and we just want to say thank you to everybody for allowing us to use the field for our festival. It was great, and we thank everybody, the police, everybody who was there. That gives us all the scholarship money for the schools. It gives us, for the community, the food banks, the families, and a lot goes to the churches locally. And we look forward to a car show and Community Day to help fund the same things. So, and the Veterans Boat Ride up the Hudson, a lot of that money went to that. So that was very good. So, along with everybody here, with all the hard work of everybody, not everybody here, there was a lot more that made that happen. So we're presenting a check of $2,000 to use as you see fit, any which way you want. And thank you for letting us use the field.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the comptroller likes to take the checks right away. Doesn't let us get a hold of them.
Make sure they signed that.
Thank you very much to all the Sons of Italy. Please extend our gratitude to the rest of the lodge. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
But they say everything in life is timing.
That's right.
You came the wrong night.
Yeah.
Okay, now, town board member comments. Any board member like to make a comment, Councilman?
Let me go first. Just a reminder, September 15th is Community Day. One new item that they're going to do, there'll be an article in the Southern Dutchess News about it, but there's going to be an East Fishkill photo contest. 3 different categories, everybody's eligible. Take pictures of what you think East Fishkill really is.
Oh.
So whether it's farming, whether it's wildlife, whether it's pizza parlors,
Funeral homes.
there's only one of them.
Oh, that's nice.
Another one, something new this year is also going to be East Fishkill Rotary is going to be doing a food drive for all the non-perishable, for all the food pantries and everything in the area. So if you can bring a food item, parade, car show, live music, zip line, magic show, performances by local groups, and plenty of vendors, and there's food, Nick, so you can come.
Oh, excellent.
That's it.
That's it? Okay, Councilman?
Just to say a couple more things about Community Day. From now until Community Day, we are looking for major sponsorship for that Community Day. Some volunteers will be coming around, and there is a program, according to whatever you sponsor, there is different steps, different things that we might be able to offer on that day. So I encourage anybody in the community, the business community, that wants to sponsor Community Day and have exposure that day to please contact the Recreation Department, Jan McHugh, and some of the volunteers will be coming around. I have a little report from the Police Department. On 7/19/2018, officers responded to a residence on Hamilton Road for a report of a 29-year-old male who had overdosed. Police officer Austin Nichols and David Chaparino went to the residence and quickly determined that the male had recently ingested heroin. Officer Chaparino administered Narcan to the patient. The patient later became conscious and alert and was transported to an area hospital. On 7/21/2018, Sergeant Detective Wood taught the CRASE Civilian Response for Active Shooter class at St. Columba. church, training 17 ushers, volunteer and nurses in this very important topic while providing a great service to the people, helping to keep the church safe. And I know that, just a note on this, the town supervisor and I, we were present on the first meeting when this program started. I think it's a great idea, and it's a way to protect a large amount of people that congregate and avoid certain major negative impact on their lives. So great work by all involved, the volunteers, and thank you to St. Columba for allowing this program to have a beginning. Many other things happening, smaller and larger, in the community. Thank you to the police department and the volunteer firefighters who every day respond and really take care of the community of East Fishkill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bebang?
Just a couple things. I'd like to again congratulate Chief Orsino, Lieutenant John Wood, Sergeant Gasson, Detective Sandus on their promotions. We're lucky to have them in this town, and I know that they're going to serve this town with diligence. First, I'd like to thank everyone that participated in the food drive for family services. It was very successful. They needed like an 8-foot pickup just to hold everything, to haul it up to Poughkeepsie. I think it took 1.5 trips or something like that. So we received this beautiful card that was addressed to the town. I won't read it in the interest of time, but they're very grateful for our efforts. Also, I attended the East Fishkill Farmers Market last weekend, and that was a great time, despite the weather. I'd like to thank everyone who was involved with planning that. I was actually there with Councilman Franco, and I bought a pen there, so I had a farmers market. Also, I'd like to thank the East Fishkill Fire Department and their rescue squad for their dedicated service to the town. They're always responding, and we're very appreciative of their service. And lastly, I'd just like to remind everyone, I'm always welcome and open to answer any questions or address concerns, and I welcome you to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, now for mine. Oh. I'm kidding.
You went at the beginning.
Clerk, I'm sorry, you can't leave yet.
Carol, I got about 6 pages.
Mommy.
Okay.
I see 7, actually.
The East Fishkill Rec Department will be hosting a teen trivia night on Friday, August the 10th, from 7 to 10 p.m. at the East Fishkill Community Center. This is for teens ages 14 to 17. Be featuring Wraith of DAR Trivia. There'll be prizes, giveaways, and lots of fun. So, Councilman Cassidy, you can't come, sorry. I'd like to
No
thank
food for
again
you.
everybody who came out for our second annual Think Differently Day at the Beach at Red Wing Park. Special thanks to Jan McHugh, Bill Green, Dutchess County Legislator Marge Horton, and Mary Ann Lacey. We had really great weather and a huge turnout. The turnout was actually bigger than last year. We couldn't be prouder. The county executive stopped by and he said a few words, and actually said a lot of great words about East Fishkill and how we're sort of leading the way between Julie's Jungle and the things that we've been doing in town, so we're very proud of that. And again, thank you to all of our sponsors that helped make that day possible. Our Veterans Committee that myself and the supervisor are heading up. The chair of our Veterans Committee is Jim Reynolds. He's a great guy. He works very, very hard. We're beginning an outreach program for vets in East Fishkill. Veterans will have a separate tent at the East Fishkill Community Day. And we'll be reaching out by mail to all the local vets and urging them to come and visit the veterans at that tent, where different vet agencies will be there. And there's an opportunity for vet-to-vet talks, which is very important. And they can provide them with all sorts of information about benefits that they're entitled to. And some of the agencies that will be there during Community Day at the Veterans Tent will be Dutchess County Veterans Affairs, Semper Fi Parents, American Legion Post 1758, the Dutchess County Clerk and Favor Program, the Honor Flight, and Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 869.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Councilman. I'd just like to say that the East Fishkill Fire District is always looking for volunteers Please remember, it's really nice to help your community, being a fire volunteer. You could reach out there on the East Fishkill Fire Department District website, or calling 221-1652 is the headquarters. Please, we need volunteers. They do full training for EMS, whatever you'd like to do. Please come out and volunteer. We really are in need of volunteers. And I'd like to wish our clerk, Carol Hooray, a very happy birthday.
With a 2-hour meeting.
25, right?
Yes.
And with that, our next town board meeting is August 30th, so everybody remembers that, August 30th. We have 2 public hearings that night, so don't be late. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you.
Favor?
Motion.